And our first talk is from Regan Gallagher from Monash University. And he will be talking about the massive report paradigm, assessing the richness of conscious visual experience. So Regan, go ahead and share your screen. Perfect. And we can see what we're looking at here. Looks fabulous. Okay, so why don't you go ahead and take it away, and I will hold up some fingers when we are approaching the end of the talk. Thanks.
All right, so mic is working, yes? Okay, first up, what I'm about to talk about is a large project that involves a lot of researchers. So I've got listed here all of the other people who've been instrumental in getting this work up and running. So I'll be presenting the research that I've done, the experiments and analyses on, but it is part of a large project. So it's worth knowing that a lot of other people have gone into developing this to the state it is at. Okay, and the project really deals with an age-old question of how much do we see? And both philosophers and neuroscientists for, as long as we've had them both, have really delighted in showing us how much of our experience is illusory, so that it, when we look at the world, it appears as though we have a really rich experience. We take in so much, but when we actually analyze the information content of our visual experiences, it appears as though there is not that much information that we are able to report. So one of the classic paradigms that has demonstrated this is the Sperling paradigm, in which participants are presented with an array of letters, as you see here, for a very short period of time. And even though subjects feel as though they see everything, when they're asked to report on any of the letters, usually they only are able to accurately report 3 or 4 letters. So the implication here is that the information that we have available to our conscious perception is actually really limited, even though the subjective experience is the opposite. Of course, this is more complicated because if you present the same stimulus for that brief duration, and then after the stimulus has disappeared, you cue one of those rows, let's say the middle row, participants then go from very poor reporting to almost perfect reporting. So they can report any one of those rows after they've seen it. And so it appears as though what we are seeing is greater than what we can report in any particular instance. If we loosen the constraints on the Sperling paradigm a little bit further, we can see that people don't just report, let's say, the letter A or Y or a Q. They're able to report a lot more than that. So they can report that they saw letters, that they were from the alphabet, that they were white or uppercase or on a black background. So again, what is being experienced is far more informative than what a lot of these experiments are actually tapping into. So the point of the talk today is to examine that problem of deriving the information content of a conscious visual experience. So the problem, to put it very simply, is that previous tests of visual experience leave out important information, and they're underestimating, we hypothesize, that the relevant information content of our conscious experiences. And so the solution of the massive report paradigm is to allow people to report more and report more freely. And importantly, for understanding the informational content, we need to test what they can identify, as in what's present in that image, versus what is absent. So what they can differentiate one stimulus from another. And I'll explain a little bit more about the importance of that. So today I'll talk about the massive report paradigm, in which we're extending some typical psychophysical parameters. We use massive samples, massive responses, and we massively improve, or at least increase, the informational estimate of conscious visual experience. Okay, so what does that look like? So here, hopefully the frame rate of your screen is adequate, but you should be able to see a variety of images flashed relatively briefly on the screen. And I want you to notice 2 things. The first is that of any particular image, there are probably many things that you could report. More importantly, for the informational content of consciousness, is that each of those images can be easily discriminated from every other image. Okay, so those are 2 important aspects of understanding the informational content of conscious experience. how rich an experience is, and how differentiable it is from other experiences. Okay, so here's what a trial sequence in our paradigms would look like. We have a fixation point, an image flash briefly, and then a mask. And in one aspect of the paradigm, we had people just freely report what they saw, as well as give a confidence level. In a follow-up experiment, we took all of those words that people reported, and then we played them back to a new set of people in which they reported their whether they saw that word in the image and whether they were confident. From 1 to 4, low confidence being 1 and high confidence being 4, and yes or no, they saw this particular word. So fountain or various or park, etc. For each image, we had obtained a large set of words. We have a large set of images, over 420 actually. And importantly, what we can do is for each image, we take this set of words that is present for that image, and we can take the word set from every other image as being absent from this image. Obviously, we have to exclude the words that overlap, but we now have a massive set of words that we can play back to people and see whether they can respond as with yes or no and their confidence in this new paradigm. Okay, we then estimate the information transfer rate. So what this basically is based on Shannon's information theory, in which the number of binary decisions accurately decoded through a physical medium disturbed by noise, that is the definition of information. And so we have a simple formula of the number of responses people are able to give, yes or no. So it's a binary response. And because it's a time value, we can take that bits estimate and put it per presentation time. So we get a bits estimate per second. Okay, and we also have to measure accuracy. And we do this using signal detection. We take accuracy as the area under the curve of this rock curve. If we have time at the end, I can explain a little bit more how that's relevant, but just the takeaway here is that we use signal detection theory as our accuracy measure here. Okay, what does that look like in an example? Well, imagine people saw this image of the president, prior President Obama. They see these present words, President Barack Obama, etc., etc. And then we select randomly from this set of absent words and people discriminate between them. Then we can look how accurately people classify the present words as being present. So yes with high confidence, all the way down to no with high confidence for the present words, and do the same for the absent words. And we get this pattern where yes words are responded to, or present words are responded to more accurately and confidently, and absent words are responded to as no accurately and confidently. Okay, and then we can derive our AUC measure from this reporting method, and we can use that to develop our information bits per second estimate. Okay, so that's just an example. Here are the pilot results where we do the exact same thing. We start with these very simple images with only a couple of words, heart, love, outline, black, red, color, etc., and we present it for a longer period. And then people also see a subset of these absent words. We get this same basic graph. We derive our AUC. So this is real pilot data for this cartoon image. And we can use that formula to derive a bits per second estimate. So this simple image, based on these responses, we get a 223 bits per second estimate. This image, you see the same pattern of results, similar pattern of results for the AUC, and an increased bits per second estimate. And again, for the final pilot image, we get a similar answer. Okay, and then here are the test trials. So we used a real world image taken from a, thank you, Megan, from a subset of a larger image database. And you can see, using the same formula, the same word analysis that we did in the previous ones, we get a massively increased bits per second estimate for the information transfer rate from a single image. And the point is that people are able to differentiate between this huge number of absent words as well as a relatively limited but still large set of present words. And so we can derive a huge amount of information from these images. I'll just flick through the next few images so you get an idea of how consistent these responses are. So here we have another just natural scene. We have a very high bits per second estimate. Same again, and still very, very high estimates. Okay, so I'll just say that that's our pilot data. This is going to be a registered report. So we're still yet to submit that as a registered report. But to just wrap up, and I'm happy to answer questions about any of the specifics that I've talked about. But basically, what we've tried to do is loosen some of the typical constraints on a psychophysical paradigm. So we've massively increased the number of responses people can give. We have massively increased the number of participants. So we've put these out on MTurk, allowing us to gather huge amounts of information, all using either the same image or a variety of images, a variety of present words, a variety of absent words. And by doing this, we see a massive increase in what participants can report about their conscious visual experiences over and above things like the spelling paradigm and other similar paradigms. A really important aspect of the information theory basis of this paradigm is that information depends not only on what is present, it also depends on what is discriminated from that experience. And so when we take into account all of the absent words, all of the things that each stimulus can be discriminated from other experiences, then we start to see this massive increase in information. So it depends on what is present, it depends on what is experienced, but equally important is that the information content is also dependent on what is excluded by observing a particular experience. Okay, information theory also provides a principled way to estimate, thank you, Megan, the informational richness of a conscious experience. Previous estimates are that the human visual system or vision comprises only about 40 bits per second in terms of informational content. And obviously, our estimates drastically revise this estimate. But of course, the upper limit really depends on what can be excluded, and the upper bound could be much, much larger. So just to conclude, a moment of a conscious experience is potentially richer than philosophers and neuroscientists might like to lead us to believe. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Regan. We can't do clapping in Zoom webinar, but if you enjoyed the talk, please drop something in the chat to say, yay, that was a great talk. I think this was a great talk. So if there are questions from the audience, we have a few minutes for questions. So please use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen to submit questions. And while here we go. Okay. Oh, great talk. Thank you, Enrique. All right. So while we're waiting for some other questions to roll in, I wondered if I might ask a very brief question, which is, this seems like a really cool way to look at the interaction between the bit rate of perception or the informational content in perception and the informational content in a visual stimulus itself, or the spatial distribution of stuff on the screen in the visual stimulus. So I'm just wondering, do you have any plans to look at that?
Yes, so we have looked at, say, pure noise stimuli, Gabor stimuli, and what is very interesting is that while the information that's present in those stimuli is very difficult to describe by your novice observer, most people don't know what a Gabor patch is. When you factor in the discriminability of a Gabor patch from any one of the insanely large number of conscious experiences, you can still derive a large estimate. Now, that is important as a critique of the paradigm as well, because you could say even the simplest experience in our paradigm appears to have a very large, informational content. And so some people might say, well, a Gabor stimulus is not informationally that rich, but because it excludes, our brain is able to have a tremendous number of experiences. So having this one experience excludes all of those. So in that way, it is highly informative.
Cool, thanks.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it does. And I'd love to talk to you more afterwards. And unfortunately, we're now out of time, but just very quickly, there's some questions about dependencies between words, and also like the length of time of the stimuli. So maybe you could just say like very briefly and then answer more in the chat or something.
Okay, unfortunately, I can't see the Q&A, so I just have to guess.
Okay.
Your...
It's really, do you plan to change the duration of the stimuli? And also, do you
Okay.
look at dependencies between words when you are computing this measure?
Yeah, so quickly for the first one, yes, we have a variety of time estimates, both for the word generation and for the playback scenario. I could talk about that with an interested individual. But for the other one, correlations between words is a big factor that we're exploring right now. So, you know, if you see a cow in a paddock, then words like grass and sky and fence, etc., all can perhaps come along for free, I suppose. So you get this correlation that can bump up the information estimate. So what we're trying to do is use artificial intelligence algorithms that, you know, smart photo analysis software, use the gold standards and compare a conscious observer. And the image analyses do okay. They do well because they can see the correlations in the image and the correlations in the word. But human conscious observers, as far as we've tested, do much, much better.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. And we can continue to go. If you click on the Q&A at the bottom, you can continue.